AD Thresh is already known to be just a meme build, but why? Surely a 200% AD ratio on a support champion was given with purpose, right? It isn't the first time a support has been given an AD ratio, and no matter the case, with such a powerful attack and damage scaling with souls, why has AD Thresh never taken off? Over 10 years have passed, and yet Thresh has remained in the bot lane and only ever in the support role. What experiments, which innovators, and how many honest tries have there been to make AD Thresh work? And did it? First off, why is it just a meme build? What's going against it to prevent the effectiveness of AD Thresh? I've discussed this before as a little bit of a Thresh main myself, but Thresh has 450 range, which is kinda bad as far as ranged auto attackers are concerned. Even Teemo and Lucian, two shorter ranged champions, have a range of 500. Add to that they have much better wind-up percents than Thresh, that is to say their attacks are much faster and less sluggish than old Thresh here, allowing them to make up for shorter range with their freedom of movement. Thresh, on the other hand, has nothing of the sort. That being said, there is a moment in history where Thresh built AD, and the majority of Thresh players were doing so. Before the current support itemization, supports were given a choice between AD and AP options, either focusing on poking or executing minions in order to gain or share gold. Despite an AP ratio on every ability, that 80 to 200% AD ratio was enough to convince the majority of Thresh players to take steel shoulder guards for its little bit of AD. However, this was a long time ago, and since then Thresh has received pretty major buffs to his AP ratios. So I'm not sure players would still shy away from Relic Shield's ability power in the modern day if it was still around. That being said, there are now champions in support that legitimately build AD, like Senna and Pyke, so surely Thresh players picked up that fancy new Umbral Glaive as well, right? Well, no. In his natural role, he never has the money to waste on AD items as the effectiveness gained just isn't as good as on Pyke or Senna, due to his range and lack of mobility compared to those two. Durability and ability haste serve you far better in both engaging and peeling as a support. In which case, why would anyone even consider playing AD Thresh? The most attractive feature is that 200% AD ratio, which as of very recently has been buffed to a 210% AD ratio. Like most meme builds, it can be convincing when you see a clip like this, building a fantasy to try and achieve within games of your own. So if support doesn't have the budget for AD, and neither does AD help him play support, what about other lanes? In a farming role, AD Thresh can afford big items, power spiking with either Static Shiv or even something like Titanic Hydra or Sundered Sky depending on the kind of build and role he's going for. At level 9, when Flay is at level 5 with its full AD ratio, it can hit pretty hard. Having done well in mid or top, a Thresh can roam and inflict true torture upon the enemy ADC in theory. The lack of support responsibilities also gives more opportunity to focus on farming souls as well as gold in order to gain those free Thresh stats over time faster, which in it perhaps lies a more nuanced take of AD Thresh. Though the one-shot clips always get the most attention, the more subtle on-hit Thresh builds are often more versatile in their order, allowing a tank Thresh to still perform frontline and peeling duties, but with added infinite scaling on hit damage, giving a recently buffed 1.7 magic damage per soul on hit, meaning you get 170 magic damage on each attack when you have 100 souls. So did people simply not read Thresh's abilities and come up with a good build yet? In over 10 years, could it be that AD Thresh simply hasn't been solved yet? True enough, League players tend to go for meta builds, and if you aren't already a meta build, what's the chances that someone actually thinks you up? It may seem far-fetched, but if you'd believe it, there was a time when building Muramana plus a slowing on his item on Ezreal was unheard of. Yet one day, a new build came about in Season 3 that popped off into popularity and the meta under the name Blue Ezreal. Yet we'd know very similar builds today that simply go by Ezreal. With a build already determined to be goofy, most players looking to play AD Thresh will be doing so in normals with a casual mindset, and most players looking to climb or play at high ranks will be looking for competitive builds. Some will find the most powerful build that suits their playstyle, others will look for the most powerful champions and suit themselves to the pick, while yet some players will choose the champion that best fits their team each match, meaning the number of ranked climbers on experimental builds, especially ones preconceived to be nothing but memes, is likely hopelessly small. Speaking of fitting team comps, AD Thresh and Thresh in general is very versatile and so can kinda fit into any team. But League isn't often about being a jack of all trades. Thresh won't scale harder than Kayle, won't raid boss harder than Nasus, won't carry as hard as Vayne, and won't tank as hard as Ornn. When 4 out of 5 team members are playing specialized champions focused on DPS, support and peeling, wave clear and roaming, and power farming or ganking, what use is a champion who prides themselves on versatility, especially when often facing an opponent specialized in killing them? Though his flexibility in builds may be a very underrated quirk that we will talk about in the future, being flexible through itemization means you need gold, which you might not get. Is there a dream item build path which lets you harness Thresh's power, and has anyone even tried to find it? Well, actually, at least one person has done some experimenting. This player was none other than AD, a bit of an off-meta enjoyer who played Thresh top in ranked in Korean Grandmaster and Challenger. The build was closer to full tank, with its most aggressive item often coming in the form of Wit's End, but did also run the old form of lethal tempo to let the soul on his scaling do the work. AD did this build for a bit, but seemingly stopped after a short while, and not exactly a positive win rate, though the sample size was very small, even for one player. This was back in 2022, but I'll link a video about it from both myself and HappyChimeNoises in the description below. AD Thresh doesn't need to go full burst. He doesn't have to go full attack speed, nor is he required to go full tank. Even if he'll never be the best option for top lane, mid lane, ADC or wherever else, there has to be a best option to suit AD Thresh. Perhaps it's something that takes the best parts of each build. Flay's AD ratio is strongest at level 9, roughly approaching or at 2 items. Is there a powerful 2 item spike combo that doesn't compromise too hard? Soul damage scales well into late game. What combination allows him to take advantage of that without also losing the early game? And when all is said and done, and when that meta breaking combination is found, how can we know it's enough to be called good? Well, there's only one way to find out. Thanks for watching. I'm not the best player and have stayed casual this whole time, but man, if I'm not going to give things a go when my favourite pet build AD Thresh gets a buff, am I even the AD Thresh guy at all? Not only will I be playing League and other games over on my Twitch channel that you can find in the description below, but I'm sure AD Thresh isn't the only build available, and maybe we'll talk about other options in future videos. If you aren't subscribed but are interested, well, maybe now's the time. Shoutouts to the members War Squid, Ultimate Ground, Cryo's Dad, Gentleman Zeta, Lunar Eagle 1996, 53rd Alabama Booty Obi-Wan Kenobi, N Era, AC Immortal, Mr. Noodle, Bass1378, Gilbert Moles, Demon Caranthil, Luxius, Dario Castro, Entity 9, Overseer, Enluca, Colorado Cosmico, Hollowed, Lunar Arc, King of the Crossroads The Vex Crew, Cposh, K-Rock 22, and Torgiro. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel.